Hello guys, welcome back to your CCNA 200-301. And in this lesson, which is lesson 6, we're going to look at what broadcast addresses, and we see how to calculate and find a broadcast address in any network. So the concept of broadcast address comes from the concept of network addressing. So the first thing we'll have to look at is just a simple recap of what network address is. So for every network, so assuming you are in a network, every network has some form of identification, and this is what your network address is. So anyone in this particular network would have the same number as a network address, irrespective of what their IP address is. When we convert that to the network address, each number which is residing in this particular network will come up with the same number. Going back to the previous example or previous lesson, we saw that we had a number like 10.0.0.1, and then we also had a number like 10.1.4.2. And we're saying that because they all bear the same subnet mask, and when we converted, we got, for the two of them, we got the same IP address as the network address. So 10.0.0.0. We can say the name of the network which they reside. It's more like you saying what's the name of the family. We saw that in previous lessons, that the network address or the network part is just the previous or your family where you're coming from. Okay, so in this lesson, what we're going to do is broadcast address. Now, for a broadcast address, the idea of broadcast is what we need to discuss here. So if you are in the same network, assuming you have PC1, PC2, PC3, and P4, and PC1 has an, or PCA has an IP address of 10.0.0.1, PCB has an IP address of 10.0.0.2, and PCC has 10.0.0.3. And the last one, which is PCD, has an IP address of 10.0.0.4. What we're saying when we saw unicast addresses, we said any IP address that can be assigned to a PC is a unicast address. And we also said that the network address is the IP address that everybody in the network, if we do that calculation we just saw in previous lesson, we'll get to, it is that identity of that network in which these IP addresses are belonging to. So when we talk about unicast traffics, we're talking about a conversation between one PC and the other. So unicast is when one machine can speak to another machine using their respective IP addresses. That's fine. But let's assume you work in an office and we want to send information, and we're working on PCA and we want to send information to PCB. We will be tempted to send separate traffic to this guy and another traffic to this guy and another traffic to this guy. These are three different packets of information that we will have to be sending. And also, one thing you should also remember is that anytime we send information from one machine to the other, we're making use of what we call bandwidth. We will be seeing that as we go along. So one thing about this particular sessions is the fact that we'll be learning concepts gradually. We wouldn't want to overwhelm you. So you'll be seeing them as we go along. But what we're trying to say here is when you want to send information, you use some form of cost. And that in this case, we call it bandwidth. It costs you some bandwidth to send information to this guy, same to this guy, same to that guy. So if you're going to be sending information to everyone in our network, assuming we have 50 machines in our network, and we're sending it from one of the machines. So it means that machine is supposed to send minus itself, send 49 different messages. And this is really going to be a problem because you're going to utilize a lot of bandwidth. So the concept of broadcast is just like the way we watch the news every day. It's a broadcast message. So one message, they don't come to your homes to tell you the information. They send one message. So with broadcast messages, we send one message from PC1 and it is repeated at some point to PC2 and in PC3. And this time around, it's just one message which is being sent to all these devices. So we're not trying to send different messages. So it costs us only one traffic to send information to all of them. Another logical explanation would be when you have a notice board in your companies, we can decide if you want to send a message to everyone, we can decide to address a letter and send it to everybody. That will cost us, say, 3 papers. But if we decide to put it on a notice board, everyone who belongs to that company will be able to see that information at one particular point. And this is the idea of a broadcast message. So the fact that we will need to send it to a particular notice board means that we need a particular number that everybody will be waiting to see. So first off, the broadcast address is just it's more like where we have your notice board. So it's just another number that everybody in the network will be waiting to hear from. So once this guy sends a message to the notice board, it's just like your notification for your phones. This guy will be able to see it. B will be able to see it, C will be able to see it, and D will be able to see it. Even though it was not addressed specifically to them, it was sent to an IP address which belongs to the network. Now, in every network, the first IP address in the network is what we refer to as the network address. So in every network, the first IP address is the network address. That's the first IP address. That's the network address. That's the address that explains or identifies the kind of network or the network that you belong to. Also, the last IP address is what we refer to as the broadcast address. The last one is the broadcast address. And this is what we're going to look at now. We're going to look at how to calculate that number and then see how best we'll be using it from subsequent lessons. So after lesson 8, we're going to start doing a practical demonstration. So don't forget about that. And then I'll be showing you the process to download the software and then use the software to do your practical demonstration. I bet you're going to love this. All right. So as I mentioned, the broadcast address is that address that if we would want to send a message to everyone within our network, we send that to that particular number. And it is also the last IP address in our network. Okay. So in order for us to define or find our broadcast address, we are going to follow some steps, just like we did for the network address. So first of all, in order for you to find your broadcast address, the first thing you need to know is your network address. If you don't know how to calculate the network address, you have to watch our previous video. And the second thing is what another thing we would want to consider is what we call the wildcard mask. I'll explain what a wildcard mask is in a few minutes. And the last thing will be to add the network address. So anytime I say network address, it's synonymous to NA. Wildcard mask is WCM, so that you don't get that confused. So you add your NA to your WCM, and that's how we find our broadcast address. Okay, at this point, I'm believing and very hopeful that you should be writing these terms somewhere and the steps somewhere, because we'll be using it to explain or to calculate our broadcast address. All right. So let's just say we acquire an IP address from a vendor. We'll talk about that later, how to acquire a network address and all that. But let's just say you went somewhere. We don't know where we get the network addresses for now, but we get somewhere and we got this network address given to us, 10.0.0.0, and we got the subnet mask 255.255.0.0.0. That will be our subnet mask. So network address here and subnet mask here. Okay. So as I mentioned, in order for you to find your broadcast address, the first thing you need to know is your network address. Do we know our network address? I bet you we do, which is this one. So our network address here will be 10.0.0.0. And the next stage is for us to calculate what we call the wildcard mask. So our wildcard mask, in order for you to calculate the wildcard mask, we use a formula, and the formula can be seen here. We say we use global subnet mask. Don't worry, it's not anything tricky. So global subnet mask minus your subnet mask that you have for your network. So the question now will be, George, or whoever is giving you this address, you ask them, what's the global subnet mask? Okay, so your global subnet mask minus your subnet mask should give you the wildcard mask. Now, our subnet mask, which is this one, the second bit of it, is just the subnet mask we were given. But the global subnet mask is a constant number. The global subnet mask is always going to be 255.255.255.255. That is your global subnet mask. But the subnet mask itself is this subnet mask. So the global subnet mask minus your subnet mask, which is 255.0.0.0. When we subtract, we're subtracting each octet from the octets beneath it. So this one is going to subtract this from that. So 255 minus this will give you 0. 255 minus 0 is 255. Don't forget. 255 minus 0 is 255. And then 255 minus 0 is 255. And this is how you calculate your wildcard mask. Yeah, so this is the wildcard mask. I'll explain what the wildcard mask is later on. Now, the third part is when I said you add your network address to your wildcard mask, and that's how you get your broadcast address. So how do we do that? So in order for us to do the third part, our third part, so this is step 1, done. This is step 2, done. And this, we're going to do step 3 now. So in step 3, what we're saying is we add our network address, which is 10.0.0. So network address plus broadcast address, plus wildcard mask should give us our broadcast address. Okay, so the network address is 10.0.0, which we can see up there. And our wildcard mask is seen here, which is 0.255.255.255. Don't forget it is addition. So when we do that, we have 10 here, dot 255 plus 0, which is 255, 255 plus 0, which is 255, and 255 plus 0 will also be 255. And in this case, we say our broadcast address for this particular network is 10.255.255.255. And this is the last IP address you have in your network. Okay. So the next thing we're going to be considering is, as I said earlier on, if you have any doubts, just send me a comment and I'll respond to it as soon as I see it. Don't worry your head about it. I'm going to continuously check my YouTube and I'll always be there to guide you every step of the way. This course is supposed to help you get enough information to be able to become a network engineer, and not just that, to be able to work towards the CCNA exam also and become a professional and certified network engineer. All right. So what we just did was calculating our our broadcast address. And we said to calculate our broadcast address, the first step was finding the network address. Our network address was 10.0.0.0. The second step was to find our wildcard mask. And in this case, our wildcard mask was 0.255.255.255. And I said, in order for you to find the wildcard mask, there is a formula. And that formula is just the global subnet mask. So the formula for finding wildcard is your global subnet mask minus your subnet mask. And that will give you a wildcard mask. And we said global subnet mask is 255.255.255.255. We also said your subnet mask is the subnet mask that comes with your network. So which for this one, it was 255.0.0.0. And when we subtract that, we got our wildcard mask, and our wildcard mask was 0.255.255.255. The last bit was to just add the two numbers. So the network address plus your wildcard mask will give you your broadcast address. So again, as I repeat, 10.0.0 still is your network address, and 0.255.255.255 still is your wildcard mask. And when you add them, you have 10.255.255.255 as your broadcast address. This means that we know what the first IP address in our network is, which is the network address. And we know what the last one is, which is the broadcast address. So technically, what we've done is we've been able to identify what the network address is, which is the first IP address in your network, so which is 10.0.0.0, because we already knew that it was given to us. and we're able to find the last IP address 10.255.255.255. Now, every other IP address in between them is the IP address that we can assign to machines, so the usable range. And we'll discuss what and how to find your usable range in our next video. So as I mentioned, your broadcast address is the first IP address. The last IP address in your network is the broadcast address. All right. So before we leave this, I'm going to explain briefly what a wildcard mask is. So when we talk about wildcard mask, I'll use a logical explanation, and I'm hoping that this will make sense. So this is how I'm going to explain the wildcard mask. Let's assume you buy a house and you were told that the house is at this location. It starts from here. But you were also told that the measurement for your house is, say, 10 centimeters. So when you go to the entrance of the building and you had your own measurement somewhere, all you had to do was just measure 10 centimeters from the starting point of the house. Wherever it ends will be, you know that for sure that will be the end part of your house. Now, the measurement is what the subnet mask is. So the subnet mask, will, as I mentioned the last time, I said the subnet mask will tell you how big your network is, even though I also mentioned that the subnet mask can be used to identify the network. It shows you how big or long your network is. So wherever your ending bit for your network is, that will be your broadcast address. So the starting point is the network address. The ending point is your broadcast address. The measurement is the subnet mask. But the physical, when you go to the actual location, the physical spaces that you have for that particular measurement is what we call the wildcard mask. So this is the physical spacing you have. The measurement is just the logical. The physical is the wildcard mask, what you actually have. So the wildcard mask in your head should be kind of the reverse of your measurement. So we're assuming that when we start from here to here, this would be the measurement. But when we actually put the measure on the ground, wherever it starts and ends, the physical distance that we covered is what the wildcard mask is. All right. So if you have any question, just send that to me on this platform and I'll respond to you. Don't forget, we have lots and lots of lessons we're going to discuss in the subsequent videos. There's one particular video you should always look out for, which will be how to install your packet tracer. And then that's going to be the platform that we're going to use to do our practical demonstration. I'm going to guide you on how to install it, and then we'll start using it in, say, lesson 9. Thank you very much for being with me once again. And please, don't forget to leave a comment, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you've not subscribed, and share this video with your colleagues. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.